Welcome to the virtual 2020 IPAC Unity Forum. We will have a Q&A with the candidates, one question at a time.
Secondly, what is the future of America in the context of the resurgence of white nationalism and the need for equal justice for all Americans?
So a resurgent white nationalist movement threatens the very nature of the United States and our identity as a multicultural nation. In February of this year, Director of the FBI, Christopher Wray, told the Senate Homeland Security Committee that racially motivated violent extremists and hate crimes are a national threat, priority on par with foreign threats such as ISIS. And data from the FBI has shown a consistent increase in the numbers of hate crimes year over year since the election of Donald Trump, indicating that his rhetoric and policies have only emboldened this domestic terrorism threat. Citizens of color should not have to live in fear that their nation has become hostile to their presence within its borders. Diversity is the heart of the American spirit, and tolerance is one of our most treasured values. To that end, we must ensure that Congress of the United States ensures the protections exist both for minority communities and against the spread of any extremist nationalism. By re-implementing the Voting Rights Act in a constitutionally compliant way, adopting legislation to undermine recruitment into racial extremist groups, and returning questions designed to screen white nationalists from military service, we can help halt the rise of white nationalists. However, the rhetoric of Donald Trump and others on the far right are not the only source of resurgent white nationalist movement. As the wealth gap has grown in our society, white nationalist movements and other racial extremists have found increasingly fertile grounds to recruit new members for their cause. Our nation requires a Congress that fights for programs that will diminish and eliminate the inequality that encourages the growth of radical racial extremism. Through programs like Medicare for All and a living wage, our nation can restore the promise of America for all its citizens and reduce the appeal of movements like white nationalism.
The resurgence of white nationalism in recent years has been appalling and has no place in our society. I come from a small town in North Georgia where I was considered an other because my father was an Iranian immigrant, where the KKK still burned crosses. This president has to be held accountable for stoking bigotry, as when he said after Charlottesville that there were very good people on both sides. It's shameful that any president would ever equivocate between white supremacists and the folks who protest them. But while we push back against this awful rise in hatred, we have got to work to expand opportunities and civil rights for all Georgians. That's why, as state senator, I voted to expand Medicaid, make Election Day a holiday, and defend our public schools.
Hello, again, this is Dr. Malik. I strongly believe on the responsibility to protect every human being. That is known as R2P. Is an international norm that seeks to protect all human beings regardless of race, religion, color from oppression. We as a world community have to come together and respect each other and form alliances with each other to honor the dignity, life, and rights of all human beings, and that includes the women and the men. All over the world, we know that women are the one who suffers most and are the first victims of any oppression. So we have to make sure as a leader of the free world that we form and alliances with our friends and other countries so the human rights and dignity are protected all the time, regardless of where they come from, what are their belief system, what are their political philosophy, but we have to make sure that no human being are oppressed, tortured, or killed, or any form of genocide. So let's come together as a human nation, as a human family, protect each other and respect each other's rights. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Brenda Lopez Romero, and I'm running to be your next Congresswoman for the 7th. I am also a civil rights and immigration attorney and an immigrant that was formerly undocumented. That is why I am concerned about the issue we have with this current administration that has demonized and made immigrants a target of attack for white nationalists and the rise of violence against communities of color. That is why in Congress, I will work to abolish ICE by having real alternatives to detentions that include the repeal of 287G, ensuring that we ban private companies from having detention centers being ran by them, and ensure that we work to provide indigent care for immigrants in immigration court. And also continue to work with the nonprofit organizations that I have done, including working against the Muslim ban, all 3 iterations, to ensure that in Congress, I will continue to support the No Ban Ever campaign to ensure not only that we end the current discriminatory bans, but that we don't allow these into the future and provide accountability to our enforcement agencies. In addition to that, I believe that we need to continue to support legislation that provides for equal rights under the law for every person in the United States, including communities of color. And that includes things like ending mass incarceration and ensuring that we have equitable access to healthcare, which is why it is so important to have Medicare for all who want it, so that every person can have coverage, including those regardless of their immigration status. I will continue to work for comprehensive immigration reform to ensure that we allow our families to come out of the shadows, to not be afraid of this nationalism sentiment that we have, so that we can rise to grow in the American dreams when we become the next doctors, lawyers, teachers, and essential workers that have helped us during COVID-19.
One of the reasons I got into this race was because I woke up on November 9th of 2016 and found out that Donald Trump had been elected president. And I deeply oppose the direction that he's taking this country. Many of his policies are racist, they are sexist, and they are deeply anti-immigrant. I believe in a country that is diverse, inclusive, global in its outlook and aspirations, one that invests in our people and makes sure that everyone has access to opportunity and the American dream. There are several policies in particular that President Trump has put forward that I find deeply offensive. One of them is the Muslim ban, where he discriminates against countries that are predominantly Muslim in terms of immigration to this country. This country has always benefited by drawing in the best and the brightest and the hardworking and people who want opportunity. And by doing that, he not only sends a very terrible signal to the world, but he undermines our own country's success and prosperity. The other thing I take deep issue with is his extreme anti-immigrant policies. I deeply dislike the policy that separates children from their families at the borders, a policy where we have seen immigrant children put into cages. This is horrific. It suggests a country that has lost its moral bearings. We have also seen this country send refugees back to their countries of origin where they are in harm's way. And I know of people who have been killed by this policy, and I deeply oppose this. Last of all, I am deeply committed to equal opportunity and equal rights. And there are a series of reforms that need to be made in this country to make sure that all of us and all of our children have access to opportunity and to equal rights.